Hey, I'm Romi.
And I'm Nicole. Welcome to the Her Pursuit Pod, where we share our journey of building our business, The Daily Drip, a dynamic media platform that provides content and community for more than 4,000 South Florida female CEOs, founders, business owners, executives, and professionals.
Whether it's through our newsletter, events, or this podcast, our hope is to inspire your next big move and arm you with the tools you need to crush it. So tune in on your drive to work, wind down with us after a long day as we share our journey and the journeys of other remarkable business leaders on Her Pursuit. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Her Pursuit. I'm Romi, the co-founder of The Daily Drip. I am flying solo today without my co-pilot. I'm here with Karen Ross from Palermo Landsman & Ross, Ciara Gravier from The Bunker, and Lisa Rigoli, Element of Change. And we are talking about content first for your business, which is super interesting to me that I'm leading this conversation, given that my partner is a content creator. Like, this is her whole vibe jam, and I'm somehow leading this conversation. My content strategy is tag me so I can reshare. So I'm leaning on you guys to talk about this. And I think there's a lot of interesting things, actually, and the three of you are going to give a really cool dynamic for the audience on this topic, just because of the industries you work in and the approaches that you've taken. Karen being new, Ciara and Lisa kind of taking two different sort of approaches to how you do that. So we're starting first. So I kind of led with content first as your business, but would you agree that that is how your business is run, that it's content first to sort of how you've built your business?
Yeah, it does. And I would say for me, yes, because I want to be able to build trust with my community in a way that they see me and not just know about my business, but how do they know about me as the business owner?
For me, honestly, I knew I had to create content. Commercial insurance is something nobody wants to talk about. Right. And Lisa's super entertaining with her stuff. I wouldn't say that I'm not like naturally entertaining, but I wanted to do the podcast route because I would be able to provide value. Three things: provide value, grow my network, and create content at the same time. So that was the angle of why I went that route. But and I kind of do it without a strategy, which 2025 it's changing. I'm gonna be a little more intentional with what I'm creating, maybe even aiming for more value. I'm definitely value driven.
It's so interesting because, first of all, one of my favorite things that I saw you do was at one of your conferences, you walked around interviewing people.
That was the first thing I've ever done that way. Yeah.
It was so good.
It was so fun
it
too.
more than once.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
the guy
fun.
with the hat was one of my favorites. Right?
Please don't tell him that.
No, but your questions, you're bringing attention to what you do, but in such a way that like people are getting to know you. And I think to me, that's what I've always sort of understood in terms of content. Like, for someone that's not a content creator, for me, it's about putting things out that give people some insight into who you are, and somehow it connects to what you do, right? And doing it in a way that people are like paying attention. Like, none of you, love you all, do anything sexy for a living, right? Like,
tax code
accounting,
come on,
hot.
2025, I'm bringing sexy.
I'm here for it, and I see it. But it's interesting because you guys have created, this presence on social media that is very engaging to watch and pay attention to. And then it's kind of like you then get led into what you actually do. Now, Karen, you're new to the game.
I am new to the game.
You are new to the game. Yeah. So how does that feel? How is that, like, what was your strategy going into it? Like, was it thought out, or you're just like, I'm just going in?
So it was first because Peter told me to. And I couldn't understand why I needed to do this as an accountant. What accountants do this? No other CPA firms are putting content out there. And Lisa just nailed it for me. And now I understand. I do it because I want my clients to see who I am. And we're such a family first, personal service, get to know you, personalization type of CPA firm, which most of them are not. I want them to see me. I want them to see my personal life. I rarely talk about accounting, and 95% of my content is all organic. It's like, you know what? I really like this idea, and I want to put this out there and talk about what I'm doing outside of accounting. I want to talk about who's impacting my business. I want to talk about hopping onto Ciara's bonding content because we're a construction CPA firm. That's part of what we do. And I can tag team with her and make accounting look sexy.
It's pretty amazing because I think that what I've learned, even in just like being side by side with Nicole and building my own personal brand, is that at the end of the day, like, none of us are doing anything revolutionary. There's a million people out there that do anything that we're doing. But what we've come to is that I think content got so overproduced, and now people are just looking like, we want to work with people that we know, like, and trust, as cliche as it sounds. And that I'll pay more for something to work with the right person. You know, like, I don't want to overpay for things, but I really genuinely care about, and I think that we've moved into an era of that where we care about the people we're doing business with. It matters.
I think too, like, the world has changed, and this is something that you guys teach us at the Daily Drip, right? Like, it's a hybrid business world now, and I'm very passionate about this, especially in my industry, because I'm a person that has studied and I have designations, and I'm always learning, because insurance is complex, right? And the reality is that the education piece, at some point, it's not there 100% yet, but in the next 10 years, like, the person that is found is the one that's going to win more.
Yeah.
And if we're not online, we're not going to win. So the education doesn't matter. What you know doesn't matter. So I think that when you start thinking about it that way, like, how are people going to find me if I'm not there?
It's awesome that you just said that. Michael was at a Rotary event, and someone was talking about me and my content and and he goes, "That's my wife. You know, you're talking about my wife." And really, your wife? They have great content over there, and it's not boring. They don't even look like accountants over there. So it really is helping our business development, and we're not even selling our business services. Right. I'm never talking about accounting. Actually, I don't want to talk about it. Snooze fest.
It doesn't matter. They know that what you do for a living, and they understand that, like, this is what I need, and I can get this done at any number of places. But they're choosing you because of what they're seeing and how you show up. So in the spirit of all of this, in terms of, like, doing the content, you have a podcast, you kick ass with all of I love your videos. I watch all of it. And you're very vulnerable in your content, which I think is also something that really that's how you make it sexy. How do you do your planning around it? Like, is there a strategy in terms of resources? Do you have a team that helps you execute? Do you plan it out for the week? How does it all come together?
3 parts. There's a team behind the scenes, because there was no way it could be done by me. Systems, and then time blocking. So I literally have a team that we meet every month to really figure out, we actually meet the current month for the next month to figure out, okay, what's happening in the next 30 days and how do we plan it out in a really smooth way? The second thing is systems. We use ClickUp. So ClickUp is our platform of choice where we literally house, here's what's going out on the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th. I love it because I can just open it up and know exactly what I need to do. And then time blocking, I actually have time blocked because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner that says, oh, these are your 2 hours this month that you're going to record videos. So it just helps in a really smooth way. So I guess it's just a 3-step framework. You know how I like my frameworks.
So funny, because as much as you and I are like, I'm terrible. I like a framework. I don't know how to create the framework. Yeah. I mean, Ciara created my calendar. So, like, I know.
Time blocking is
My problem is boundaries, right? So, like, I have to work on that. But I think I've struggled to create, like, I'm very spontaneous with my content. It's like I don't, because I can't do it in a way like.
You mean you're spontaneous with your reshares?
Yes, very spontaneous. Hey, listen, at least I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. At least my strategy is to at least get tagged by the right people. So I'm sharing the right things.
It is a strategy.
Because I gotta be honest, I get tagged in things. I don't share everybody's stuff.
I have a question.
Some of it gets buried.
I have a question for the czars of content, right? Okay. I'm always afraid I'm gonna annoy people by tagging them too much in my stuff. That is a fear of mine. Am I crazy?
I mean, the way I look at it is I can get tagged all the time. If I'm going to ignore it if I don't want it. But for the most part, I'm like, I get excited and I'm going to reshare it. But there's never a thought that goes, at least in my mind, of, oh my gosh, Karen tagged me for the 5th time this week. If anything, I'm like, damn girl, thanks for thinking about me.
I want to tag that's how
so
I get my
many people, and I'm like, oh, I'm always tagging them. I'm so nervous.
No, tag away.
I don't think it. I mean. Maybe someone is, but I don't think it's a problem. I don't think so. And I think too, I used to feel that way about, like, posting, like, oh, I don't want to post so much, but on it, I think the algorithms have changed too, where it's like they're feeding it to all of us at different times. Even if you follow someone, you're not necessarily seeing everything that they post. So,
well, and I think, it's funny. There was quite, I stirred the pot on this very topic in terms of posting every day. However, I
never knew you were going.
Yes, I know, but I will say that I see the benefits of all the different ways of doing it. I think it has to just boil down to like, what are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to reach? And how are you putting it out there? Is it authentic to you, right? So I see people who post every day and I'm intrigued and I follow along, and I see people who post every day and I unfollow because I'm just like, mute.
I think it's important to just engage every day. So just like you may not go to the gym and strength train every day, but you're physically active every day, right? So engaging in content, whether I'm hopping onto Ciara's or I'm consuming versus creating. Sometimes I'm creating. Sometimes I do 3 posts a day. Sometimes I don't do a post for 3 days.
Student became the master.
I'm just engaging when it feels right. Yeah. It's like my content engagement is for me to decompress, honestly. It's like, oh, this is what we have going on in our firm. I want you guys to see what we're doing. Or, hey, this is what Karen is doing. I want you to see that. Or, oh, my son had a headshot done by the master of headshots, Daniel Wakefield. I want you to see that he's great, and you need to have your kids getting headshots done. Yeah. It's whatever feels right.
I agree. So in terms of, so what's interesting about your content, so I want you to talk about the resources and strategy, but you also used a podcast to showcase other business owners. Your approach is really about highlighting other professionals in the community. And I'm curious as to how did that become your strategy? It's kind of mine, to be honest. I just don't use a podcast for it.
So my thought process initially was, I had gone to a conference and they had, because I always thought that it's oversaturated. Everyone now has a podcast. Like, it's the thing. And so I was at a conference and they had asked the audience, someone on the stage has an insurance specific podcast, and someone in the audience had asked them the question of, hey, do you notice any growth in your insurance agency, even though your podcast is specific towards insurance agents, right? So you're not selling anything, and you're just talking to us. And he said, absolutely. It has helped me in the community. Like, just having a podcast, you're received different. People perceive you differently. You're an authority. And so they had said, well, how many people in the room have a podcast? And there was about 300 people in the room, and about 11 people raised their hand. And they were
before you had
yours? It's okay. Why I started it. And then they were like, if you take one thing out of this conference, go home and start a local community podcast. It's going to change your business. And so it's funny because my dad had been telling me, you should start a podcast. You should start and I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Like, I have nothing to talk about. And by the time I got home,
and keep talking, because I'll be like 2 a.m. and I'm looking at your TikTok videos. Are you watching Ciara again? I'm like, yes, I am.
You don't even need guests on your podcast. People will just be staring and listening.
Well, thank you. But I got home and I ordered all the equipment, and I'm kind of just that person where I'm rip the Band-Aid, and I'm not really the person. This is not good advice, so don't do this. But I'm not the person that's like, well, I have a camera and I'll just start with this. Like, no, I got to spend the money so that I feel the pain so that I do it, right? So I bought all the equipment, $2,500, bought the equipment, and I was like, well, now I got to do it, right? And it worked. And so Mike was actually my first guest. And we had so much fun. But my point in saying all this is, I feel like for me, I'm in an industry that's very supportive, and I've gotten a lot of support, a lot of help, a lot of mentorship. And I've always heard, man, I'm never leaving insurance because the support is the best. People come from other industries. I wish I had this kind of mentorship and support earlier in my career. So then I was like, man, well, if so many industries aren't that way, maybe I could just start a podcast interviewing people in my community that are successful in their business, and that are willing to talk about it honestly, and are willing to talk about what's hard, what's easy, how many times did they fail. And so it was hard to start. It takes a lot of planning and getting in the rhythm of it.
Yeah, talk that through a little bit, because this is the resource time management, like all of that. Like, how much time, how many resources do you dedicate to planning out the podcast and then extending that content?
Again, bad advice, but this is the way I do it. It's true.
Don't do me.
This is the way I do it. I don't plan my episodes. Like, I don't have themes for my episodes, because that it's just extra work for me. And it's funny because some of the guests, like, who's the guest that's like needs like, hey, what questions are you going to ask me first? And I'm just like, we're just going to have a conversation. I don't script it. I don't have a theme. It's come talk. Just have a conversation. It is. But it's really just my own, like, I can't be too structured. I'm not organized enough to like have a like
Soul sisters.
Right.
It's giving me anxiety.
Lisa came and she did it. I do ask. So what I did do is I created like a Calendly where you can, sign up, pick your day. I did time block my days, and I have Friday mornings, Wednesday afternoon for anybody that can't make the morning. So that was the number one key. I didn't have to start looking for time in my calendar. Where can it be? No, these are the 2 days a week that I have blocked. And at some point, someone has a Friday morning or a Wednesday afternoon free, right?
How many episodes do you record a month?
My calendar is open for 2 weeks. So, for example, I have one this afternoon, but I don't have one on Friday. Next week, I have two. So both, I do one a day.
So how do you plan the release of it?
So we release two a month. So I have about 9 always like in the bag to give me some space, because I did learn that early on. I lost my editor at the time, and then I went about 2 or 3 months without posting anything because I couldn't find an editor. I didn't have any in the bag. So I have some there recorded. Yeah, about a quarter's worth of to help me in case something happens where I run out of guests or, anything like that. This is what you should do about what I do. It's what I do is I ask everyone that comes on, hey, who do you think I would be a good guest for me to have on? Where I'm getting access to their network, where I would probably never meet this person, and everybody wants to come and talk about themselves. Right? Like,
everybody likes to talk about themselves.
So I feel it, right. And so it's like, it's giving me access to people, growing my community, growing my network in a way that's about them. Right. We never talk about insurance. Even the insurance agents I've had on, we're talking about the business.
Right.
So I think that's been the best thing I've learned as far as like asking other people, and then they feel good inviting their friend. Right. So I would encourage anybody to do it. I think that once you get into the rhythm and the system of it, it gets way easier. And now I'm actually having fun. At first, it was a chore.
Your podcast was the first podcast I was ever on. Like, I'd never been on a podcast. It was hands down one of the best experiences. It was you made me feel so comfortable.
I know. You gotta come back.
I was like hived out. I was hived out on that one.
We had so much fun. It actually, when you get out of your own head. Ironically, after what, getting out of your own head and just realizing you're just having a conversation and things can be edited out. Yeah. Like you don't have to worry. You don't just have a conversation. And I think that that's kind of helped me. And I like to do it in person. Yeah. I really like the in person. I think it sticks more. I think people pay more attention. It makes for good content. So I get one episode, 45 minutes, and then I get about 4 reels for my socials. And so what I do is I post 2 to promote the episode, and then I keep 2 for that way. A rainy day, I'll do a throwback series. Yeah. And then I have 2 of each guest that I could do throwbacks, in the next year.
That sounds very structured to me.
Yeah,
I have mild structure.
So this is where my sitting side by side with Nicole, I've learned some things. So when you do that, do you do collab posts? So that they are now sharing that same thing, and because then you get double the exposure. Now their whole network is seen.
Look at all of the things I'm learning.
I'm telling you, collab posts, it's a new thing for me, but I've learned about it, and it's very important.
It's funny too, because the episode that I think that I enjoy or that I think will do the best never lands. It's not the one that performs the best. It's so funny.
It's the same with the articles, by the way.
That's so funny.
It's shocking. Yeah.
It's wild how the audience responds to stuff.
Yeah. It's so true. Even some of my LinkedIn posts, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so lame posting this. It gets it's the one that goes viral.
So it's kind of like you just got to detach from the outcome of how it's received. Just post it. Just do it consistently. Show up.
Drop right there. Yeah. I feel like, okay, that's a wrap. Like,
you just have to, because if I think it's good, and I think it's, it was good for me, but I'm not, my audience isn't just a bunch of me's, right? Like, it's different people from different walks of life. And so I think that when I realized, like, don't worry about how it's received and who likes it. And, it's out there, it's consistent. And the best thing about it that we have to remember is that it lives forever.
Is that good or bad?
I mean, well,
that just gave me anxiety.
Well, this is good. This is good. I mean, like, a girl's weekend living forever on the internet might not be great, but
Well, here's what I want to add on the collab, because when you had me on it, you just said earlier that you asked people who can come on the podcast. But what you asked me was, hey, Lisa, would it benefit you if I share some of these videos with you for you to share on? And as a content creator, I was like, give me the entire file, because now that's going to make me excited. And we spread it out for almost 6 months where we were repurposing. And it was a little bit selfish of like, oh, I want people to see it. But it was also highlighting, but here's the podcast that I was on. Here's my friend that I was on. So for that live on longer, it happened because I kept reposting a podcast 6 months later, highlighting and giving cred to you for inviting me. I don't know. That was just something I want to throw out there.
No, and I would say too, something that I learned is, which might be a little bit selfish on my side, but it's a content conversation we're having. It's like, if I invite someone to the podcast that doesn't have a social media presence, not great. So I'm kind of like, I'm trying to like, okay, well, yeah, the goal is to promote each other, right? So if you're not online and if you don't have a social media presence, like you might be a round C draft pick.
I don't think I love the sports analogy.
Well, I mean, it is what I mean.
You're not even round C, honestly.
It's 2025.
The minors, and we're gonna wait till we pull you up. But
I had like a vision of high school where the sign up is on I can't speak. There is a sign up and it's like, here are the people that made the cut. If you don't see your name, sorry, try it out next year. Try again.
But you know what? It's actually a very fair and accurate comment, because the reality is I think the same has to be said for the podcast you go on. There is something to be said for that. Like, while we're all looking to, get the exposure and we want to be seen in a certain light, there's something to be said for the podcast we choose to say yes to. And so I think it's fair that the same way you're evaluating your guests is how I look at evaluating like podcasts that I'm going to guest on. Like, are they even speaking to the people that are going to serve, my objectives? Because if I'm talking to a group of people that would never pay attention to the Daily Drip, join the Daily Drip, are interested in what we talk about, it probably doesn't make sense for me to be on that podcast,
To your point and the point of this conversation too, and one of the keys is being intentional. Right. Like, don't just throw spaghetti at the wall with your content. Be intentional about what's the messaging. What do you want to look like online? What do you want to be known for online? Right. Like Karen said immediately, we're a family first CPA firm. And that's what she shares. Right. And we're connected to her children automatically, right? Like we know the dogs.
We know Shelly's got dance comp. We know all the things.
But that's it feels real then. Yeah. So then for you to show up here and say we're a family first CPA, that's authentic and it's intentional.
Wait till you see our multicultural. We do Spirit Week, by the way. I haven't released that content because it's happening right now, but it's so true. I want people to look, everybody knows what accountants do. Everyone knows what CPA firms do. Everyone knows we do tax, Nobody needs to see that on social media. No one cares. I don't care. It's boring. A few years ago, I tried using Hero Post and creating this very structured plan and putting everything on there. And it flopped. It totally flopped because I just didn't even know why I was posting these things. I had no intention, no authenticity. And then Daniel Wakefield actually was the one that he gave me the nudge, and he was like, okay, Peter is forcing you to do social media. I'm going to kind of coach you into it. And so I just started tagging onto his social medias, and it made me much more comfortable. And then I'm like, whoop, here I come.
But I'm curious, do you agree, though, that depending on the platform, it does matter what you share about your business? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I never post the same, one of my pet peeves, unless it's a reason for something like the Holiday Hope campaign or something. I never post the same thing in all three medias. I have one style for one source, one style for another source, and I never double up because then I feel like people just get bored. Like, it's the same.
Oh, I do it. I post it all. You guys are getting it everywhere. You guys are getting it everywhere.
Well, okay, so I feel like I'm kind of like
I used to feel that way, but at some point I'm just like,
But on LinkedIn, I would say that my Instagram definitely looks different than my LinkedIn. I post a lot of dog or what, cat,
same.
Things, and more frequently in stories. It's also a little more accessible. LinkedIn, you're still trying to maintain some modicum of decorum, Yeah, listen, more than just a pretty face. Okay,
I do agree with you guys.
I went to college.
Unless it's the community page, and then it's a free for all.
I have to be a member to see that. No, I'm just kidding. Subtle plug for the Daily Drip. I'm just saying.
No, I do agree with that though. Like my Instagram is more personal, more behind the scenes, more like more relaxed than LinkedIn.
Okay, so that's another question. I have 2 Instagrams. I have a personal and I have a professional. And now I'm always on my professional, never on my personal. I don't even want to look at it anymore. How do you decipher what to post? For me, since I'm posting more personal and office related things, how do you know what to post where?
So is your business one is the firm's page?
It's my page, so it's my EA.
I say stick with one. When we think about trust, to me, I wouldn't want someone being like, oh, it's different on this side versus this side. So don't get me wrong. On LinkedIn, I do look a little bit more buttoned up. But on my Instagram page, it's still me. Am I going to throw out something professional? Absolutely. But then I'm going to do my crazy dance with my girls because I'm going to show people that, hey, I still put my pants on one leg at a time. Sometimes, falling over. Backwards. Yeah, sometimes backwards. But we talked about this earlier. Like, people are scared of HR. So to me, I don't want them going to one page that they're like, oh, this is the HR side. No, like, you can actually come talk to me. Like, I'm a real human being. I have the same struggles you do. I cry. I don't know.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful.
And I agree with that. I mean, I don't have a separate business page. Like, I only have my Romi Uncensored for better or worse. But I agree. I think, like, you really want to see the whole person. Yeah. Again, like, everybody knows or are learning what you all do professionally. They care about the person. And so, like, your content I find super engaging. Like, I don't even understand the HR space. Everything I've learned, Friday Funnies, your recaps. So let me ask you,
the fact that you know that makes me happy.
I love your polls. I answer all the questions. Yes. And
How do you know what to do? How do you?
That was going to be my next question.
Here's what I would say. You said it best earlier. You're like, what does your audience start to tell you? My audience wanted to interact with me. So I was like, okay, what can we do differently to give them an opportunity to do so? I can't live too much on the spontaneous side, but I at least say, okay, how do we have a poll here? How do we have a question here? I want to be known from a place of, we're going to have fun. And I want to keep it simple. You're probably busy on a Monday. Yeah. So why don't you just slide the slider? Like, that makes... I'm looking. You guys look very intent.
We're literally like, if you're only listening, I'm like, if you're not watching and you're just listening, like, we're watching because, like, what you're saying, it's super perfect. Like, it makes a lot of sense, and because we genuinely are all intrigued by your content. Like, it's so good, and that was going to be my question: is how do you know? No, it doesn't. What it says to me, like, I learn a lot about you because you talk about, and I've learned so much just from you being a part of this community, honestly, in terms of communication and learning about myself and how to understand, and what I say is not necessarily how it gets received, all of that. And your content, to me, just reinforces everything that you're about. Like, it's showing people, like, communication styles, how to lead, and in a way that is so relatable that, like, I have understood things in a way I never would have considered before. And I get more and more of that. And you make it fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All your Ted Lasso stuff, I love that.
So engaging.
So good. That's what I was like, is that your creativity or a team?
So that was going to be the other thing I would say, then a different way of looking at it. How do you engage online, and what are the things that get you excited? Because when someone asks me a question and, like, their call to action, and it's like, tell me your deepest secret. I'm like, I don't have time to tell you my deeper secret, and nor am I doing it on LinkedIn. But if someone's like, oh, what's your favorite coffee? Do you like Starbucks, a hole-in-the-wall place? Choose one. I'm like, oh, that was so easy. I'm going with B. How do you like to engage with content, and try that with your audience? Chances are they're going to engage the same way.
I guess that's part of my question too. Like, I think, like, there's a lot of trial and error involved, right? 100%. But you're like, what I'm hearing from you is you're really paying attention to what is getting traction. Like, what are people responding to? And then it's like, okay, I'm going to double down on this strategy because this is where I'm getting the most activity. Do you see a change in your strategy, like a podcast in your future? Do you see a change from podcasts? Like, how do you see going into 2020? Oh, that's probably part 2 of the episode, but I am jumping ahead a little bit. Well, it's just like, actually, here's the real question. You both chose very different approaches to how you were going to deal with content. You knew you had to show up, and you've chosen a certain path. So the question is, was the path you chose the one of least resistance because it felt the most comfortable to get started? Or are you like me where you just choose the hardest thing possible and close your eyes and hope for the best? Like what was that?
And making sure I path as it relates to which platform, or path as it relates to how I show
you
up.
show up. So for instance, Ciara went with podcasts. That was like the way she sort of forged her path in terms of how she creates her content, like how she shows up. I mean, I know there's more, but that's a strategy in and of itself. So for you, doing the videos, like for me, I hate video. So I'm not comfortable there yet. I'm still working on little ones, and I do them in like the private groups. Like I send them in little places. I like test it. I test it. So was that comfortable for you from the start, doing the videos, doing the content the way you do it, or was this outside your comfort zone? You had to push a little harder.
It was definitely from a place of comfort and a place of enjoyment. I am that person that will watch reality TV shows all day long if I could. So to me, I enjoy watching it that way. So I was like, why not flip it? So the fact that you guys were all like, oh, you're so vulnerable makes me happy, because I'm like, oh, I'm doing my makeup, so I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah, I would never do my
makeup.
well, I can't say never, but I'm not the one that's doing my makeup. Like I just can't. I'm not there yet. I'm sure one day. It's funny because when I decided to do this whole thing and like I'm trying to do way more and different types for next year, I was like, Ciara, you're never going to cry on the internet. You're not going to do like those TikTok dances. And now I said I'm never going to do my makeup. Let's see. I'm going to do them all.
Always end up doing.
I'm going to look December 4th. We're putting that. I'm not going to cry on the internet. I'm probably going to cry on the internet.
It's my most viral videos.
I have been all over Nicole because I am determined for her and I to do a TikTok dance. Like it is happening.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it is happening.
It's different. You know, not like me in the kitchen by myself.
No, I'm talking just, what do you mean in a group? Nicole and I are two people. That's now a group?
That's a duo.
All right.
I have one more thing that I would say to, out of my own experience, I did choose the podcast route. And I think it's because it's so funny because you're the one in HR, but you're the fun one. And I'm the one that like, is like, I have like this confinement of the content that I do release, which for next year, I'm trying to, extend those a little. But I would say my number one tip would be for people to just also do it. I didn't have everything. Like I'm still not on audio only platforms, and people ask me and I'm mortified and I die of embarrassment every time. I'm like, oh, well, I'm only on YouTube. I'm like, I'm a one woman show. Like I'm only on YouTube. But I'm almost at 50 episodes. Like imagine if I would have waited to just.
Who's going to be your 50th?
Karen Ross.
I love it.
Yeah. Like, so like it's, I don't wait. Like just start.
Just do it.
Just start because I'm behind. But guess what? By the time I figure that out, which that's on my plan for 2025 to be on all the audio only, I recorded them separately, so I'm equipped for it. But I'm gonna release almost a year of episodes on those audio only platforms.
I think it's because you're doing it so vulnerably, and people see that and they're attracted to that. They appreciate it, and then it just flows into better business, more noticeability, better reputation, because you're being vulnerable. You're out there in the community. We were just talking about it when I came in. Social media before used to be all about what people wanted you to see. Now it's like the anti. They're like, I want you to see everything raw as it comes, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. Doing your makeup.
Right. Well, if you think, actually,
want to see it.
I know. Malia was the one that told me when I had her.
Do your makeup
one day. Malia, when I had her on, the episode hasn't dropped yet, but she told me, Ciara, think about the way what is the content you consume? What do you like to watch? Well, make more of that. Yeah. And so that's on my bingo card for next year.
It's interesting. I had this thought. It's not really content related, but I was getting ready this morning. I was thinking about it, and especially because the last couple of days I've been in rare form, apparently. All right. Why. Yes, I get fired up about things. But I will say this. I think what I was kind of processing was it's all very real. Like I show up very much. Like I don't even know how not to do it. Like it is what it is. And my content looks like me. Like there's nothing that looks different than who I am. Like if you see my content and how I, show up, and then you meet me in person, it's going to be the same. Yeah. And what I find is that just like in real life, like when I meet people, this is what it is. What does it do for me? Some people can't handle it. That's okay. It serves me. because those people will run and it saves me all the trouble of getting too invested and it brings in the right people. And I think maybe content should get looked at it the same way. Like the people we want to work with, the people we're trying to attract are the people, like I want the people consuming the content to be the kind of people I'd want to engage with as well. Right. So maybe approaching content from that way, like don't be worried or scared about how it's showing up. It's going to bring the right people in. Right? Like it's going to get you the right kind of attention.
And I think just keeping it real, not sitting there hyper focused on, is this the perfect text? And is this the perfect tag? And are these the right hashtags? And am I posting on the right platform? And whatever feels natural, normal, and real. Just like when you guys posted all this shit, all this waste I have in my kids' stockings. I'm like, keeping it real. Yeah. I said, keeping it real. 3 words. That's it. And some of my posts are 5 paragraphs. It's whatever's natural. It doesn't have to be so hyper focused.
Manufactured, hyperly, like so manufactured every single time.
Yeah. We started this episode with me being very real about the fact that my content plan is tag me so I can reshare. Like I'm the co-founder of a media platform and that's my content strategy.
It's working on medium videos for you.
Medium videos.
Medium.
I'm gonna get out of
the tiny
private groups and the WhatsApp circle video that I do. Guys, this was amazing. I really appreciate it. I think that at the end of the day, the takeaways for our audience, I hope the listeners are hearing and realizing, just show up as you and show up. Don't overthink it, even though people like me overthink all sorts of things. Don't overthink it. Show up as yourself. People want to learn about you. You know, what you do is sort of secondary. They're going to come to you because of how you're attracting them as a human being, less so about your expertise. I think people understand the expertise part. So thank you guys. This was awesome. And if everyone liked what they heard, I hope you'll listen in for part 2 as we continue the conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Her Pursuit.
You can listen to new episodes every other Wednesday on Spotify or watch us on YouTube. Stay in the loop on all our virtual and in-person events, read our latest articles, and catch new episodes by subscribing to our free weekly newsletter.
Check out the episode notes for more details, and we'll see you here on our next episode of Her Pursuit.